Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special new miniseries here on twitch.tv/D&D, Eberron, Gateway to Perdition. You're probably going to recognize some of these nerds from this time slot. And thank you, TK, for starting us off with your giggling. That was very nice. So folks who didn't get to watch the pre-show, which is say everybody who isn't us, before we go live, I let everybody know. I'm like, okay, everyone, are we ready to play? Everybody gave me a smile and a thumbs up. And TK looked at me like they were going to kill me for interrupting them. And
How dare you interrupt me to remind me to do the job that you guys pay me for?
That's right. The thing that we're here to do. How dare I interrupt you? It's perfect. It's good. It's good
It's
energy.
not like it was for something good. It was about Guardians of the Galaxy, like hot takes.
Katie May!
You know, it's fine. It's fair. So you'll probably recognize if you've visited us for Jace Bellerin Must Die, you will recognize my friends Katie May, TK, and Masood.
And especially me.
That's right. So in chat, as soon as we started in chat, Ogmilder said, "Weird, Carlos looks different." So yes, good observation. Carlos is, I think, like getting married or having his appendix removed or something. I don't know. Some important
They're
life
basically
event.
the same.
Yeah. Some important life event. And so I am very excited and very happy to get the opportunity to play with William again. William, we've played together before. We did a one shot for Roll20.
Oh, so many times.
And yeah, exactly. We played role-playing games once. We're basically best friends now.
Yeah.
So I am very happy that we have the opportunity to play again together. Why don't I put you on the spot and let you introduce yourself to the cast and the audience?
Yeah, I suppose that sounds fun.
Okay.
Well, I'm William, they, them, and I've been doing like a lot of tabletop stuff with Q Times for the past about year and a half or so. If you don't know who they are, they're an LA based like tabletop production like company and stuff. They do a lot of streaming. They have a YouTube channel and whatever. I helped behind the scenes with that for a while, and then I'm predominantly a performer. So then when like we were actually starting to do shows that I could be on, I was like, hey, can I do that? And they were very helpful and gracious in getting me a show that I GM myself. It's using the Kids on Bike system. And also I am on like a Monster of the Week show that's pretty continuous and that kind of thing. And I do a bunch of stuff here and there. And the last thing you had me on was for Pathfinder.
That's right.
Second edition. And then outside of that, I'm in a band called Glass Beach, and we just signed for Run for Cover Records. So if this means anything to anyone, that's
well, what's great is that because you are here and Carlos is not, your mentioning of your band and talking about record labels will not now eat up the next hour and a half of the show. Because if Carlos were here, no one else would get a word in edgewise. Just the two of you could just talk about that forever. So I'm excited for you. That's very cool. Do you, if somebody wants to go and listen to your sick band, where can they do that?
We are on all streaming platforms. We're on iTunes and Spotify. Okay, actually, we might not be on Tidal.
Okay.
I don't have a subscription to Tidal, so I wouldn't know. But you can find us on Spotify, iTunes. If there are other ones, we are on them. Because we went through like DistroKid, which like if you put your stuff on there, it pretty much just puts it everywhere else.
Oh, cool.
And now Run for Cover just like manages all that stuff for us, and they're a label and make sure we get everywhere.
They do label stuff.
So they do label things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have people ask me sometimes about Dungeon World, and they're like, well, why do you need a publisher? Can't you just like do all that stuff yourself and like keep the money? And I'm like, yeah, I guess I could theoretically, but I would rather someone else handle all that boring crap for me. Mm-hmm. The band's name is Glass Beach, and I have a car drive to make later today, and I just added it. I'm gonna listen to this album. I'm downloading.
Well, thank you.
Now.
Thank you so much.
We're all taking out our phones. Every audience at home has a great time to pull up Spotify on
That's
your
right.
iPhone.
It's play along at home, the home game.
And or Android device, Katie May.
Follow
on your iPhone.
Follow everyone, and then follow all of the cool stuff that they do. Well, on the off chance that the audience has not been here for the rambunctious fun that is Jace Bellerin Must Die, let's get reintroduced. I'm going to allow you to reintroduce yourself. Let's start with Katie, because Katie May was making the best face. Go. Who are you?
Wow.
What is your deal, Katie May?
My deal. I'm Katie May. You have not seen me on the internet, but you've probably heard me DMing Dungeons, Dice, and Everything Nice, a D&D 5e podcast that you can find on any podcast app that you so choose. I do it here in Chicago with a few other all women identifying comedians. It's a real good time. Boom, in and out real quick.
Nice, you did it. I have to say I'm thankful for having William here, in addition to all of the other reasons, because they are in the Pacific time zone, and this is no longer Chicago runs slipshod all over the rest of us, while TK and I have to just watch. So that's cool.
We'll still talk about Chicago. We can do it.
Oh, just you wait.
This happens sometimes during the pre-show where we'll be talking about something and then everyone in the cast who is from Chicago will start talking about like a random intersection. And I'm just like, yes, we have streets in Canada as well.
That's usually when I get through like the latest level of whatever phone game I'm playing. I'm just like, oh.
Our content, our Chicago content is approachable.
It's
you don't
relatable.
have to.
I feel like if I lived in Chicago, it would be very valuable to me. I would know. I would be a much cooler Chicagoan.
Maybe all of our content's also like NBC Chicago content. Like it's unrelatable to Chicagoans though in actuality, but it's great for everybody else.
So good for everyone else.
Everybody loves Chicago PD, Fire, MD, Law.
Eventually I would like to be able to produce a show that's like one of those 90s like sketch comedy shows that they do jokes about a very specific location. And if you're not from there, it doesn't make any sense. Like Almost Live. They just made jokes about like the Puget Sound, and you're like, ha, Seattle. Like, I don't know the joke. It's not actually funny. It's fine. Well, we'll keep the Chicago energy going. Masood.
Oh, shoot.
Who are you? What is your deal?
Hey, I'm Masood. I'm a comedian from Chicago. I do stuff all over the city. Most notably, been doing a lot of things through Second City and Annoyance and the IO Theater, but you can find me online at Marood Boy, and on Twitter, which I created for Jace Beller and Must Die. And guys, you know what's crazy? 236 followers, 0 following. I'm still it's growing the way it needs to grow. So it's really nice.
Yeah, fair and reasonable. How is your accordion going?
It's going well. Thank you for bringing it up. I'm also an amateur accordionist. This is important information for everyone to know.
I'm really happy it's become part of your identity now. It's not just like I'm learning to play the accordion. I am an amateur accordionist.
Oh, for sure. And eventually amateur will be removed once I truly. Someone broke it down for me because the accordion is a fascinating instrument. But the left side has just a series of like buttons running up and down it that are correlated with circle of fifths for scales, which means nothing to me because I played classical percussion for like 9 years. So like the keyboard, I kind of know because of scales, but this whole other thing, I'm like, okay, it sounds creepy here, so that must be minor. And like, that is about it.
I just got word that Roll20 themselves is actually going to hire a professional accordionist to come on stream.
Oh, finally.
Test you when you're ready to remove the amateur status.
Let me go get it out of the closet. It's literally right there, guys. I could get it right now.
I mean, it wouldn't be the strangest instrument I've had someone play on a D&D stream with me before. So
what is the strangest instrument?
So my friend Max, who, surprise, surprise, also from Chicago. You're inescapable. So my friend Max has a collection of musical instruments that he cannot play very well, but are mostly props for his pirate costume for Ren fairs. So he will schlep his hurdy-gurdy to the Ren fair simply to wear it around. He played it for us a few times on stream. It was a nightmare. It was an utter abject nightmare. But a nightmare I now remember fondly. You know how sometimes when it's happening, you're like, I wish this would stop. But later you're like, that wasn't so bad. That's how I feel about listening to Max play the hurdy-gurdy. So you playing the accordion would be a step, I think, up from there.
Well,
okay.
Pardon
How do
me.
I feel about children choirs?
Yeah. Well, if you ever want to remove the amateur part of being an amateur accordionist, I'll give you $1 and you can make me an accordion video that's 1.5 seconds long, and then you can be a professional accordion player.
That's all it takes.
That's all it takes.
Hey, I've got content for you. Let's get on this train. We'll start a DM channel. Don't worry.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, perfect. Cool. And last but not least, and I love TK. I love this. There was a comment in chat earlier that was like, I can't tell if TK is frozen or just being very, very still. And I think that's great because it implies you're some kind of apex predator. Like you're just leaping out of the bushes ready to attack.
I like that. What?
Are you playing Candy Crush right now?
No, I'm playing something called Not Another Pixel Dungeon, and it's riveting. But I do appreciate the stalling that Masood was doing for me, because I had run through like a fire trap and I was like running to water, because if I stayed in one place, then I would definitely die. What was the question?
I feel like if you know what that could be your introduction if you like. We could just leave it.
I feel good. That was strong. I'm TK. I play phone games when I'm supposed to be working, and really, I'm just like all of you.
Extremely relatable. Like of everything else, like I'm in a band. We just got signed. I do a podcast. I play accordion. I play phone games when I'm supposed to be paying attention to other things. You immediately just win the like relatability award.
Well, I got through all of my deadlines. The show that I DM just is between seasons. It's really all coming up TK right now. So
we're dealing with vacation TK right now.
I got senioritis TK.
I'm really excited to see you play a character that is not Tack. Not because I don't love Tack, because I do, but it'll be interesting to associate you with something that isn't like a murderous shit goblin. I'm really looking forward to that.
Instead of it's a murderous 60-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're a 60-year-old human now instead. Well, let's talk about that. So if there are some people I'm sure in the audience who watched the GM prep because they like dramatic irony and they like knowing all the things in advance. But these characters are not really pre-gens. I made them specifically based on some things that y'all asked me for. And for the scenario kind of that I have in mind. And I wanted to show off some of the new stuff because we're playing in not Ravnica this time, but Eberron. Now there's some similarities between Ravnica and Eberron in that they're both a little anachronistic, but where Ravnica is high strangeness and magic everywhere and guilds, Eberron is somewhat grittier. Eberron is a sort of pulp action film noir kind of thing. Plus it has robots. Yeah.
Which actor's voice is doing the narration voiceover?
Right. That's a great question. Don Rickles.
Ooh.
Wait, you never watched a classic film noir with Don Rickles voiceover? It's great. It's great. So yeah, what we're gonna do? We're gonna obviously we'll start up the miniseries here. We've got 3 episodes, 3-hour episodes of Gateway to Perdition that we're gonna do, and I've made some characters to kind of show off some of the cool stuff about Eberron. But the players they didn't make these characters. They're getting access to them for the first time. I was saying to TK earlier, I'm very thankful that TK has risen to the challenge of playing the new class, the Artificer, which is going to be pretty cool. I'm excited. So let's just like take some time. Let's get familiar with the setting. Let's talk about it. So the game is set in the city of Sharn, which I can actually show you on the map because we have a big cool map. So this is the world of Eberron, and we're gonna be ignoring 95% of it. And down at the bottom, right here, is the city of Sharn. So Sharn is kind of the like big city of the world. It's the major metropolis, but instead of being built out, it was built up. So it's the city of towers. There are several kind of layered, kind of like like Midgar from Final Fantasy VII. There's like several layered districts, so you kind of go up and down within Sharn, and then each district has its own kind of life within, and all of the towers are connected by bridges. Which is why in Sharn, magical technologists sell feather tokens, because if you fall off a bridge in Sharn, it's gonna be bad news for you unless you have magical
Fall
protection.
in real life.
Some of the that's right. some of the districts have like built-in featherfall like wards, but those are really the districts for rich people. The places we're going to be hanging out probably do not have that in place. It rains pretty much all the time in Sharn, and also because this is sort of a noir setting, things are gritty. There's a lot of muted trumpets and regret. So I've tried to work a lot of that thematic content into your character's backstory, which I gave you. I gave you basically, so for people watching, I gave the players each a little bio for their own character to say sort of this is what your character is about. This is some stuff that's happened in your past. And then a little bit of what you know about the other characters. So I guess we want to kind of go through and talk about each of the characters, and I'll answer any questions that you might have. But TK, in this, you're playing. Do you want to tell people what the idea you gave me that I used to base the character on?
Oh my gosh!
Do you remember what you said to me?
Yeah, I'm still in the Slack channels, so let me just take a gander. Oh, can I make a request? I desperately want to play a 60-year-old white-collar war profiteer fresh out of prison, like a bomb-ass Martha Stewart type.
I just love the idea of Martha Stewart selling AK-47s out of the back of her van.
Bomb-ass Martha Stewart type.
So to fulfill that request, I created Delilah de Cannith. So de Cannith is Cannith is one of the dragon-marked houses. The dragon-marked houses are sort of the nobility of they're the nobility of the world of Eberron, and they have, and Delilah, you are among them. They have what are called dragon marks. Dragon marks are magical sigils that appear on some of these people. They are, I believe, at least partially genetic. So if Delilah had or has, because you're 60, so there's a chance this is true. If Delilah has children, they might also bear the dragon mark of making, which is the Decanath mark. Delilah is an artificer, which is a sort of spellcaster, magic item creator. And what kind of artificer are you, Delilah?
Delilah is the type of person who previously she'd been a procurer of goods, but now she's branching out. She's got her own brand. She likes to cater to the needs of specifically people who need to hide their weapons. So she does a lot of like thigh holsters and small derringers that pack a nice punch.
Yeah, and your subclass is artillerist, right? So you can make yourself turrets and flamethrowers and yeah. So the artillerist is a weapon crafter and wielder, and you have basically, when you make your weapon, you can make flamethrowers or force ballista, and it can be self-ambulatory, so it could be like a little turret that walks around and follows you, or it can be in the shape of a handheld weapon. So that is sort of your main jam, is creating and manufacturing these weapons. And this is important because the world has come out of the end of like a massive war. There's a big war between a bunch of different countries, and the technological level in this universe is sort of post. I would say that depending on like how deep into the kind of magical stuff you go, like some places obviously have more technology than others because technology isn't evenly distributed, but generally it's in a kind of magical equivalent of post World War I, pre World War II. Like there are, as we mentioned before, there are like trains. There's that orange line on the map. That's the lightning rail. So there are trains in the setting powered by magic. There are airships. And one of the other things that differentiates this setting from others is there are a bunch of different species, one of which are the Warforged, of which Masood will be playing. So Masood, what did you request of me to make for making your character?
so having spent a lot of time playing, well, recently Torgor, which is great. I did not want to play a typical humanoid character. I didn't want to do a dwarf, an elf, or a human.
Yeah.
And I'd had a lot of fun being an impulsive, like character. Like we all know the way Torgor operates. Let's try something a little different. Yeah. And so you made Investigation Unit 1138X, aka Rook Slade, a robot.
Yeah, that's right. A robot, man.
A robot. Terrific.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you are going to be playing, yes, a robot private detective named Detective Rook Slade. And the Warforged were created for that war. The Investigation Unit 1138X is, I think you're only like 8 years old. Yep, you're 8. You were created to fight in a war. You and all of your kin were robot soldiers, basically. And generally, Warforged are approximately human size and human shape, but there are other more terrifying iterations of the Warforged. They're enormous juggernaut Warforged. Some Warforged followed and still follow a rogue sort of deity figure named the Lord of Blades. But you've put that life behind you. You served your time in the war, and you tried to make it as a legitimate police officer in Sharn. But it didn't really go so good for you.
Nope.
Yeah, and so now you're making your living as a gumshoe, a private dick, and so as a result, I think probably, despite the fact that you're a Warforged, of all the characters, yours is the most kind of film noir protagonist character. Yeah, so you're a Warforged. There are other Warforged. The story that kind of revolves around Warforged is them being built for a purpose but not needed for that purpose anymore. They're the stand-in for like so many kind of like downtrodden war veterans in noir, right? That like, there's no place for me in the world. I'm going to either become like an organized crime, or I'm going to try to be a part of the like law enforcement. And so that's kind of the Warforged story, is that they don't really know what their place in Eberron is yet. And they're trying to kind of make it either as members of a organized community or as individuals, trying to find respect among other people who see them as maybe constructs.
To be fair, who knows what they're supposed to be at 8? You know, that is hard.
Yeah. I mean, you got a good like 12 years left in your life. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm not sure if there is an end to the Warforged. Like, I didn't know Warforged is old enough to know how long a Warforged lives.
Right.
Right.
No one's had to have a motherboard upgrade or anything like that. No, like truly, like their parts have just been damaged from the war, probably.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, right? Is that they were created at the beginning of the war using these massive magical forges to serve as soldiers, but we don't know if they're immortal or not, because we haven't had enough time to see if they outlast the people that made them. Most Warforged died in battle or were deactivated in battle. So in a way, you're kind of both Deckard and Roy Batty, right? You're both things, because you never know. You could die tomorrow. Your incept date could come up and that'd be it, right? Yeah. So that'll be fun. I think that all the characters have connections to each other. They at least know about each other, or maybe they're like old friends or rivals. And we'll reveal some of that stuff as we play. I liked how when I was doing the prep, I didn't reveal any of the character choices or anything. I didn't say like, oh, this person is playing that person. But I liked that once we started and we had the overlay up, a bunch of people who saw the prep they were like, oh, of course, Katie's playing a changeling. So changeling, Katie, wasn't actually one of the things you asked. That I added that for you. Do you want to talk about your concept for the character and how we executed on that?
I asked for specifically a Smee looking for his Captain Hook is what I asked for. Just because I don't know, I wanted to be blindly loyal to a cause. Everyone's throwing me such shade. Of course, she's a changeling. When I asked for the devout loyalty is what I'm going for today. A change of
Right, exactly. Rather than the beloved backstabbing ballerina monk we know from the other show, it's time to be loyal. Yeah, I love this kind of character. Like I play that sort of character pretty much all the time. Like I like clerics. I like characters who are, I like Wormtongue. Wormtongue is my favorite character in Lord of the Rings. I like people who are just like blindly, foolishly loyal to someone who's a bad idea to be loyal to.
I have to ask then, was Hubert your favorite character in Fire?
Of course. Of course, Hubert is like the ultimate ideal of that. That idea of, and with that type of character especially, there is, Wormtongue does this too, where it's like, I will serve you to the best of my ability, even if you don't understand what it is that I'm doing for you. Like, I burned down your childhood home so you no longer have to worry about the memories of it holding you back from what you truly can become. You're like, everyone I know lived there. And you're like, yes, I know. Yes. I did it for you.
Yes. This is true.
So I figured the best way to get at that kind of character for this setting was to make you a character who literally can become whoever anyone needs you to become. You are a changeling. They are a distinct species of people, but they are able to change their form more or less at will. So you can become a human or an elf or disguise yourself easily. But I imagine that with a character like Vic, most of the time it's like you use that ability to just like do your job better, to be like, you need me to be a human right now. And I think there's probably a lot of like subtle manipulation that's involved there, right? Where if you take on a human form that looks kind of like a person, they're going to like you more because they're like, oh, like you look like family or whatever. So you've got lots of room to be a very talented lick spittle. And then also I made you a warlock. So you have like layers of people to obey above you.
Layers of people to please. I love it.
Yeah.
How common are changelings in our new setting?
I think it's hard to get a good census on them because it's not like you can count them. You're like, all right, in this house, there's 3 halflings and a human. Wait, no, 2 halflings, a dwarf, and a human. And then every time you look at somebody different. So I think probably it's unclear just how many changelings there are. As far as I know, there's no way even for a changeling to at a glance recognize each other, right? You don't have like a special way of noticing that. So they tend to be separated from their, and I'm noticing kind of with the Warforged and with the changelings, there's kind of a theme of connection to your own culture or not, right? Like the sense that the Warforged were simply made to look like one another. You may not have anything in common except the shared trauma of war. And then changelings, you wouldn't even know, right? Unless somebody showed you their true form, which is the sort of gray skin, pale hair, gray eyes, kind of changeling look. You could hide and pretend to be somebody else forever. You might never meet another changeling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because that's so wild. Because just as a DM thinking about how difficult that must be to manage, just it'd be really subterfuge is so much easier now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and it adds to that sense of conspiracy and paranoia that again is like such a hallmark of noir fiction, right? This idea that not only do I not know if I can trust you, but you might not even be who you seem, right? The leggy dame that walks into your office might actually be a changeling, right? So you never know, and I think that creates this sort of sense of you might be if you have 3 friends that you've never had in the same room at once, it might be the same changeling. Right.
Oh my God. Because that's the thing is, it's like you're a police officer. You've had the 9th man today be like, no, it's a changeling. I swear.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't me. It was a changeling. I don't know. He just looked like me. Yeah. Right. And so it creates that sense of sort of paranoia and strangeness in the world. But Vic is, I think probably in this neighborhood, Vic is a fairly well-known quantity in the sense that you've worked for a few different people and done some dirty deeds as a result of having different people in charge. But your old friend Delilah is finally out of jail. And she's gonna be your ticket out of this garbage life.
Yes,
yeah.
I'm so already.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. So that should be fun. We'll get to know Vic in whatever form they decide to take when we get started. And then lastly, William, you pulled a Canadian on me, and the only request you made was, I'll play whatever, whatever the party needs.
Yeah.
Which, like, I appreciate. It's nice. Like, I'm usually that person too. Where I'm like, I'll play whatever. I'll fill in. So I made this character for you. I made Bruno the fighter. Bruno is, of everybody in the group, probably the best known. Though depending on who you are and what your opinions are about Bruno's either a character who has fallen from grace or is a dirty, no good, disloyal scumbag. Bruno is a professional fighter. Bruno is a boxer. And you are playing a shifter, which is another of the new Eberron races. Now it's confusing because we have changelings and we have shifters, and what's the difference between the two? Changelings can become any other sort of humanoid, right? They shift their form, they change, and their identity changes with them. Bruno has two forms, a more human-looking form and a more bestial-looking form. Bruno takes on the qualities of a bear, and I'll let you decide. I picked the token I could find for Bruno is literally just a bugbear with like little fur shorts on.
I love it.
Which I think is pretty good.
Yeah, I'm big fan over here.
Yeah. And so it's sort of, shifters are sort of a step between like true lycanthropes, right? Like Bruno isn't a werebear. Lycanthropy is a thing that exists in this, but shifters are more in control. They don't become fully animal, but they take on animal features. So their hair becomes coarser and longer. Maybe their muscles become more pronounced, and the different types of shifter give you different abilities. So Bruno is a disgraced boxer, a former star, a champ of the underground boxing circuit here in Sharn. But there was some disgrace in your past that led you to fall from that position and make some enemies. And that's one thing that the group has in common, right? The one thing that brings all of these characters together is a shared foe in the form of the Night Street Gang. The Night Street Gang is an organized crime syndicate that, Delilah, when you went away, they weren't shit. They were nothing. They were like no good, like drug runners and street hoodlums. But it seems like things have changed in the old neighborhood since you were gone, Delilah, and the Night Street Gang has taken over somewhat. So before we dive in, because I've got a big sort of like bang we can jump in on, I kind of wanted to just do like a little like miniature session 0 with everybody, just to kind of get everyone on the same page and like talk about any kind of like stuff that might come up in the setting. So I've done what I can to make the sort of miniseries feel like noir in tone. But obviously, as a genre, noir has some sort of problematic ideas about things like race or gender. It's not great about, like women, for example. So we're going to try to ignore and cut out all that crap. We're going to get rid of all that stuff. We're going to keep the gritty black and white vibe. We're going to keep the muted trumpets and the rain and the fedoras and the cigarettes. But the more problematic stuff we're going to set aside in favor of like pulp fantasy. Those kind of things are more interesting to me, and this is our Eberron, right? So we get to make those calls. The whole game is going to take place in the city of Sharn, with the exception of a single scene that you'll see in a moment. It's one of those things where like it's going to be a little bit more constrained than your usual D&D campaign, a little less chaotic than say Jace Bellerin Must Die, because we only have 3 episodes to get everything done. So I'm going to assume everybody is going to kind of like point in the same direction. As far as, I hadn't really thought about using any like safety tools or anything like the X card or lines and veils. Is that something that y'all want to use? Should we do something like that? What do you think? Are you familiar with these things? That's also a thing we can talk about too.
I am not.
Yeah. Okay. So there are a bunch of different ways that we can make role-playing games safer to play, right? For us as a group. And they sort of depend on a couple of like tools. There's a couple of different ways. The two that I tend to like are lines and veils, which are things that we can talk about in advance and discuss being like a line we'll draw or a veil that we'll draw across a scene. So these can be things like content that you might normally think to like look away from when it happens. So the common ones are like gratuitous violence or like torture or like anything that might be upsetting to engage with, right? We can say right now, if that comes up, we'll just draw a line and we'll move on, right? So we can have like the bad guy captures you and ties you to a chair and reveals that he has all these scary implements and then just be like, and that's the end of the scene. We can just, you don't have to like walk through your character being tortured or whatever. We'll just move on. And then later kind of do the Empire Strikes Back and be like, later Rook is thrown into a jail cell and he's, all beat up, right? One of his optics is cracked. And like, we can draw those conclusions. It's also a good way to kind of elide like sexual content without saying the characters never have sex or there's no like romance in the game. But if you're not comfortable playing it out, you can be like, and then we kiss, fade to black, right? And then later you wake up in bed together and it's like, yep, okay, cool. We can just infer that they hung out and ate grilled cheese sandwiches and played Uno. Right? So lines and veils are a way.
We don't play Uno, remember?
Yeah, remember, we heard a
can't
lot
play.
about that from last session. No,
That's
we
right.
don't get-
Omu. We play Omu.
That's right. Yeah. So that's one way to do it. It requires lines and veils requires having a little conversation at the beginning and kind of being open about stuff that you don't want to have in the game. But lines and veils doesn't always cover like everything, right? There might be something that comes up, and if you forgot to mention it or you didn't realize that it was something that was going to bother you or whatever, it can be awkward to be like, hey, I know we already had this conversation, but can we draw a line on this? Now you can do that, obviously, but the X card is another way to do that, where we basically put, if you're playing at the table, you draw an X on a card, you put it on the table. And if anything comes up at all that people want to just stop talking about and move on, you just tap the X card, right? So in this case, I would have on each screen, I would have a like a big red X. And if something comes up that you want to skip over, or you're just like, cool, we're done, we don't need to talk about this anymore, you can ping it right in Roll20, and we'll see the big circle. So that's another option. It's a little bit more freeform. It's easier for like constrained environments or times where you don't necessarily know the people you're playing with that well, and you might be more comfortable with a sort of in the moment, like, oh, I just realized this is bothering me, let's move on, right? Mm-hmm. So those are a couple. I know that there are other kind of safety tools for playing RPGs, but I've been playing games with TK and Masood and Katie May for a while now, but we have a new player, and so it's worth revisiting these conversations and talking about it. So what do y'all think? How are you feeling?
I think I'll start in because, like you said, I haven't been a regular player with all of you. But personally, I mean, there are things that just like I'm gonna avoid anyway because there's a way about me that my whether it be how I feel about the world or whatever. So I'm not generally concerned because I also play with other like-minded people often. And I feel like you're all sort of in that same vein, so I'm not super concerned about it. If I was to say like a thing at all that I wouldn't like, I'm not expecting this kind of thing. But if no like transphobia, I guess.
Yeah, well, and that's sort of a thing that I wanted to address on the top. Like for me, like in this game particularly, like I have a personal kind of line and veil thing around like gendered violence, racism. Like I'm not interested in them in the game. The only thing in this setting that might come up is, and I wanted to talk to Masood about this, people treating you like you're not a person because you're a Warforged. That might come up. But also, if you say I'm not interested in that, then it just won't happen. We can just be like, yeah, you just won't meet anybody like that. So that's something that I wanted to address because there is that possibility. But yeah, definitely like, again, like I said, we're going to strip away any of the like gendered violence bullshit. We don't need any of that. Noir can have it.
I'm okay with mainly because I also trust you as a DM for how to handle that relationship of NPCs who might not be the most kind to Warforged. But yeah, also if something comes up, I'm glad to know that there are tools at my disposal that we all know and respect.
Okay, cool. Good. Yeah, this is one of those things that like for TK and I, especially where like I like the creepy weird stuff too, and I always have to bring this up because sometimes you'll get into a groove where you're like, yeah, body horror, or like some other weird creepy thing, and I feel like it's good to just like bring that up and be like, cool, we're gonna need to let's not get carried away with that. I've had that happen in other games where two players kind of get into a thing and everybody else is just watching them like, this is very uncomfortable. What's happening?
I feel like this could have been a nice tool when Torgor broke off someone's finger to make paella. That would have been something that someone could have used.
I didn't feel the need to X card finger paella, but maybe someone else did. Maybe that was
also that person sucked. So
yeah, you can make finger paella out of the hands of people who are jerks.
I prefer not to see kids killed on camera. That's
yeah,
my big thing. If a kid died and we just like heard about it, whatever, but like I don't like situations where it's like if you fail to blah blah blah, they're gonna kill this kid. I'm like,
no, that's great. That's a very good thing. I have a player in another game who is they're very like they're easily upset by like violence against animals. So that's just something that we've like as a group we're like we just won't do it. Like it just doesn't come up. We change things so that just isn't a possibility. So that's good to know. That's nice. Thank you for letting me know
also,
about that.
Carlos is not here, so there will be no child killing.
That's right. Yeah, Carlos Baby Killer isn't here.
My only thing is that I usually play at a table, and especially for like horror is when I find that's most useful, is to have like a yellow element as well as like, hey, like, let's maybe shift the scene more away. Like yellows are like, slow down. I'm not like, I don't have to stop, but I'm hitting like a threshold, I think is really important. I know I use it at my table. It's a really, I think, an important communication tool for my table, just to be like, hey, like, I'm still here and I'm with you. But like, just like as a scene partner, I'm letting you know that we're approaching a limit.
Mm-hmm.
We use the, for mists, we use X and O as red, yellow, green. So
yeah.
Okay. Now, do we want to have like a formal tool like the X card for that, or do we feel more comfortable just saying like, hey, can we wrap it up? Because it can be hard to interrupt, right? When people get into a groove, you don't want to step in and be like, I'm just going to stop you in the middle of your scene. Like it can feel uncomfortable. You can feel like tense. Should we have another, like a nonverbal way to communicate that? Or do we feel okay? Like just being like, cool, this is great. But like, can we move on? I don't think it's going to come up, but this is why we have these conversations.
We've always had
like
I was
thinking we can send a Zoom message. That might be.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
We do have Zoom chat.
Yep. Cause I'll always see those as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, honestly, we have a pretty informal way of playing games on here. So I've always felt comfortable stopping for.
Yeah, that's true. And this is, I guess this is something that's worth for people who haven't watched before, or for example, William. The way Jace Bellerin and the way this group has kind of shaked out, and I'm really curious to see how the energy is like different. We have a tendency to go on tangents, and we're not like in character all the time.
Not today, baby.
That's right.
Locking it in. Someone made a joke about you being young, Katie, and we ignored it.
That's right. We did. Yeah, we didn't even attach to the joke.
Being small, and we didn't. Yeah. We didn't stop and make jokes about me.
All business.
Yeah.
All business babies.
So just so you know, William, they wanted to bully you, and I told them no.
That is bullshit. I have receipts that prove that is a lie.
I love that. You're the only one on my side.
It's true. I'm your only friend, William.
Those can be photoshopped. Perfect.
I felt like it would be a really strange energy if I came in and just started bullying all of you. So
that's how you actually prove dominance.
That's what I did.
This group responds very well to being bossed around. So there's still time for you to do that.
I'm such a big bully that I took the game away from Adam last week. So honestly, you fit right in.
I believe there was a moment where TK said, "Wait a second, I'm not the DM of this show." Which is good. It's nice. You know, the positive way to spin that is that we share the load together, that I don't have to do all this work alone. So
you don't. I'm your only friend, Adam.
It's nice. That's good. I know.
No,
it's
hold
not
on a
true.
minute.
I could be both of your only friends.
That's true.
So I think for the most part, like, it's not like we're playing a game like, I don't know, Blackbeard's Bride or even like Vampire, for example. There's not going to be a lot of stuff. Still Dungeons and Dragons. It's mostly going to be punching bad guys and getting in trouble and doing pulpy stuff. There's not necessarily going to be a ton of that stuff. So I think we'll be pretty good, but I feel better having had the conversation at least and knowing that if there is something that somebody needs to elide, that we have a vector for that. So that's good. I was gonna do, and I was joking about this with the cast earlier. I was gonna do like updates to the overlay to add pronouns for all the characters, but all the characters have the same pronouns. So everybody in the group is they, them. All the characters are. I think Vic also, so for Vic, do they, like they, them is probably their neutral pronoun. And then if they're in a gendered form, they might use different pronouns.
I think that Vic would respond to any and all. I think that's part of the exhilaration is being able to ascribe to any of those at any given time. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Fun. I like it. And for Rook, they, them is their pronouns now. Is this because those are the pronouns that Rook has like decided on for themselves? Or is it just like more like Vic where you have a different relationship with what biological is considered gender?
There are no genders in the Warforged. We are just Warforged.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is an interesting thing to look at in terms of, because a lot of the time you have you have groups where it's like a bunch of binary pronouns and then a character or two characters that are non-binary. But with a whole group of characters that are non-binary, we get an opportunity to look at the fact that non-binary isn't one thing, that there's a lot of different ways to do it. So it's cool that we have a character that's like responds to all genders because they're extremely fluid in that way. And then another character that's just like, gender's not a thing, like for me or my people. Like we just don't consider it. Yeah, I love it. It's super cool. I'm excited.
Yeah, coincidentally, that's how I feel about human beings.
Yeah.
Whoa. Really? Yeah, no kidding. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Dragons.
Well, and that's a fun thing you can do with role-playing games. Sometimes role-playing allows you to assess something from a somewhat distant remove and then have revelations about that thing. Be like, wait a second, this is true in real life too. I'm also a murderous goblin who tries to attack people with a melon baller.
Okay.
Listen, whatever I say, I've survived an encounter in real life with you, and so you're not actually that scary. It's okay.
Don't worry, I can still be scared if it makes you feel better.
It does. And it's only because I was in the middle of stealing like an entire tray of cheesy bread. So
that is true. You had your hands full.
And Todd like called me out. Todd is so scared of me and I love it. I live for Todd being afraid of me.
Excellent.
Todd was like TK and I was like, fucking say something, Todd. Come for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think Todd's fair game. It's cool.
Bless his heart.
Yeah. So I think for me, that's pretty much all I kind of had to go over. Oh, the other thing was we're going to jump around in time a little bit. So I will probably need your help. I'm going to enlist you in this. I think a lot of DMs try to do this and they don't get the players on board and then they fumble badly because it's very complicated and challenging. So the game is going to begin at the end and then we're going to go back to the beginning and we're going to work our way back up to the end. So chronologically, I'll need your help. You're going to need to find reasons to get your characters on that train because we're starting at the end of the game and we're going to rewind and spend the next rest of the sessions like figuring out how they got there and instead of let's just do it. I just wanted to warn you there's going to be some chronological jumping around. I might need your help making sure that continuity functions the way that we want it to.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but a lot of the last note, I guess, is that much of the material that we're using, almost all of it all the new stuff especially comes from the yet to be released Rising from the Last War D&D supplement. So there's going to be stuff in here that is new both to us and to everyone.
Cool.
So even if you're familiar with Eberron from the Wayfinder's Guide, a bunch of stuff has changed. So if you are expecting a certain mechanical thing, or you think we're making a mistake, like for example about Rook's armor class, Warforged in this book are different than the Warforged in Wayfinder's Guide.
Someone told me I was supposed to have
stuff.
22 armor class.
Yeah,
I only have 14.
Well, so you're not a fighter first, and they're comparing you very unfairly to 8, which is a Warforged in another game that I run by Dave, who I think is maybe the most mechanically proficient Dungeons and Dragons player I've ever played with. So 8 was deeply, deeply min-maxed to have high armor class.
Yeah.
Rook, somewhat easier, but you were not meant for frontline combat. You're a sneaky.
That's true.
You're a sneaky
Absolutely.
investigator robot.
Also, we can talk about integrated protection later, about how I can update my armor class.
Yes. Yeah. You currently have the equivalent of leather armor integrated into your chassis, but you can change it out and adjust it. Yeah. Yes, TK.
I know you've been ignoring me for a little while, but this is a very important question.
Yes.
Are all of the NPCs hot?
No. Some of them are not hot.
Will you clarify that they're not hot when they are introduced for the?
I think it'll be clear when I describe the NPCs that are not hot that you will know.
You thought that about Dregs, but
that's true.
Yeah,
That's true. Yeah.
okay, just like do your description and then at the end say not hot.
Oh, I did
Not
have
hot.
right. Okay, I did have a question. And it's mostly just a jokey question, but TK, the violence against children thing, does it apply to halflings wearing diapers?
Fuck.
Are they grown halflings?
Yeah, but they have like a weird baby kind of like shtick. Is it okay
got
to
a
beat
baby.
them up?
Like a fetish, or
if
like
they
a shtick?
deserve
It's like a
it, I'm not
shtick.
going to beat
Some
it
of
up
you-
just
some
because
of you will
it's their
have
shtick.
some of you will have information about this NPC in your character background. Bruno
I
especially has had personal interactions with this particular
A
halfling.
diapered halfling? Are you serious?
Only
I'm sure he won't come up again.
Not hot. Clarify
clearly
for me
not
right
hot.
now.
That's one of the not hot
Yeah,
NPCs
okay.
for sure.
Okay, cool.
But I just want to know if it's okay
okay.
to like
You guys got-
boot this one off of a cliff or something.
it's okay as long as I don't get shamed on the internet for kink shaming.
Yeah, it's less a fetish and more of like a whatever they call, like I don't know enough about wrestling to know the term for this, but like it's like a kayfabe
persona.
thing. It's a persona.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
It's a
that's
boxing
fine.
persona.
Yeah,
I
if they
guess-
deserve it, we can whoop them.
Yeah, I mean,
Unless they like it. Ew, if they like it, no.
Rook, Vic, and Bruno all know about the baby, but
Oh, I
Delilah's
hate
been in
this
jail.
already.
Delilah's been in jail for most of the baby's like rise to power, I think.
He actually got really big this summer,
Oh.
dropping a lot of hot tracks,
Yeah.
and really has been blowing up.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the thing in my background.
Oh, so you do you've heard tale of the baby.
Okay.
I have nothing written
that's-
about the movie. I'm so mad.
I hate it.
I will say that tonally, my anticipation of this is that it's likely to be less Chinatown and more Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Nice.
I think we're gonna end up there. Like we could try for LA Confidential, but I think we're gonna probably fall short of the seriousness meter on that one. So
I am Betty Boop in that club.
We're gonna go full noir. Everyone's gonna be shocked. Everyone's gonna be like, "Wow, they weren't chuckle fucks this time." It's gonna be so-
Wow.
it'll be the most serious campaign ever made. All right, so I think we're ready to start. At least we'll be able to get some time in on this opening scene. So let me set it up for you, and then we'll see what happens.
I had one mechanical question.
I was gonna say, if anybody has any last questions, please.
for sure. So I was
Okay.
looking
Oh, sorry.
at no, get out of here. We all know Rook Slade is. We'll talk about that later.
Ruggedly handsome.
Hold the TK there for a second.
He's 8. We'll see. So I for deceit. Ear for deceit.
Yes.
It says whenever you make it, you have the choose this archetype. Whenever you make a wisdom check to determine whether a creature's lying, treat a roll of 7 or lower on the D20 as an 8.
Yes.
Then does it add the like modifier?
Yeah.
to it?
It
Okay.
means you can't roll any lower than an 8. Like if you roll a 7, just pretend that you rolled an 8 and then add all your modifiers and stuff. Yeah. There are
Will I
a few
still
there are a few
roll
classes
an-
that have this.
Yeah, and then a nat one, I imagine, still is a nat one, or is that also?
No,
covered?
it's if you're
Wow.
trying to determine if somebody is lying, you cannot roll worse than an 8. It is
very
not
good.
possible, which means 8 is the default baseline difficulty rating for me to overcome with a deception check. So you're very hard to lie to. The irony is that you have the ability ear for deceit, and yet you have no ears.
Oh, my receptors.
That's right. That's right. You have head-mounted microphones like an ASMR streamer.
Oh my gosh. The best.
People just walk up behind Rook and be like, Rook, what's going on? No, stop it. Yeah, I like it. So yeah, you and you can flavor that kind of however you want, right? It could be like you're reading their heart rate. It could be like, it's so easy to read biologicals when they think that they're lying to me. Like you can flavor that however you want when it comes down to it. But yeah, you're exceptionally good at grilling nerds.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Nerds.
Any other
question?
Yeah, any
I'm
other
sorry,
questions about
so
stuff? Yeah,
technical.
please.
For my Book of Ancient Secrets, which are those spells? Did you pick those spells? Which are those?
Your spell list is already, all that stuff's covered. You don't have to make any choices.
Okay, cool.
That's all done. Whatever's in the spell list, you got it. Yeah, I wanted to
All right.
reduce the amount of having to like pick things and not knowing the optimal stuff. So you're good to go.
Eldritch Cannon. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I guess that's a question. Delilah, you would have already made yourself your Eldritch Cannon. Is it a force ballista or a flamethrower? And is it a gun, like a pistol or a rifle or something? Or is it a turret that follows you around?
How long have I been out of prison?
I assumed that the beginning of the game proper is you like you're arriving. You literally like got off the train with your bag and met Vic at the station, right? Like I imagine that you literally just got out of jail.
I made it in prison.
Okay, nice.
So it is
Wow.
a very small Derringer flamethrower, and like it's cobbled together with like some rubber bands and floss and a dental, like a toothpaste. But it's
I
got
love it.
like my artificer runes like in
So in
Scars on the
jail, the guards are going through the like confiscated items and they're like shiv, phone, drugs, flamethrower.
I changed it. It's not a flamethrower. It is a ballista.
You wanna go with the force ballista?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It makes more sense.
All right, cool.
It shoots like
That's
little
just a
sharpened
gun?
toothpicks.
I'm sorry. Is that just a gun?
It's a gun. It's a magic gun.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a magic gun.
It's my
Yeah.
tiny magic Derringer.
I guess that's the other thing is that there are firearms very sporadically like available in Eberron, but the problem is that by the time they were safe enough and like accurate enough to use, people who use magic had made better versions already of like magical stuff. So there's like the gun that Delilah has, lots of people have wands, like magic missile wands or whatever, force wands. So it's more like that. An actual mechanical pistol would be kind of like strange.
Yeah. And
Can a
futile.
gun be my arcane focus?
Yes, sure. Absolutely.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Gun is my dump stat.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's totally fine.
Wisdom, charisma, gun.
Yeah, I mean, there's like, I mean, I guess a Hexblade warlock in Eberron could use their blade pack to
That
make
would
a
be
gun.
so rad.
Yeah.
That'd be so rad.
There you go. Free character concept chat. Do it. Gun warlock.
Cast kill. Thank you.
But yeah, most people have like limited use magic items. And in the same way, a lot of our, and this is kind of similar to Ravnica, but it's like kind of grittier in Eberron. But a lot of places, magic stands in for where we would have technology instead.
Yeah, quick question about that. So I noticed that I don't have a single Featherfall token in my inventory.
That's right. Nobody
So
does. You're all poor.
Can I switch out little bag of sand for
No,
I'm not poor. I'm unfortunate right now.
that's true. Yeah, you like technically, Delilah, you have a whole noble house that owes you for doing a bid for them, but you need to prove yourself first. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nobody in your family came to pick you up from the train station, right? None of your old friends. It was It was Vic.
I
Vic
picked
came
you
to
up.
get you.
So no friends and no family. That's fine.
Except for me.
That's right.
No
One
friends and no family.
Okay.
So Delilah is Mr. Burns and Vic is Smithers. I see how it is. Okay, good. Perfect. Okay, cool.
Just wanted to bully Katie for
Any
3
other-
hours.
Thoughts, questions, shots at Katie? No, we're good. Okay, cool. All right, so let me frame this opening scene, and we'll start it off, and then we'll take our break and we'll finish it out. So, I think we fade in on everything in. Imagine all the descriptions that I make. Imagine them to the sound of like a mournful muted trumpet soundtrack. If I don't actively describe that it's raining, just imagine it's raining anyway. So I think what we see is not the tower. We don't see the towers of Sharn. We don't see the cramped urban sprawl of the city of towers. Instead, we see darkness and wilderness. Right? We see forest. We see mountains. And the only sign that this isn't a completely wild environment is through the mountain range. We see the occasionally flickering metal track of a lightning train. So we can see this like a sleeping serpent winding through the mountains. And pretty much as soon as we're able to notice that, as soon as it's visible in the shot, we hear the sound of the train. Now, because it doesn't have a steam engine, it doesn't have wheels, it's more like a bullet train than it is like a steam engine, but we hear the faint sort of crackling sound. Maybe we hear the sound of the rail activating, and as the rain hits it, it evaporates. And then we cut to a shot of a lightning train coming like barreling through the mountains. I wonder if I might have some art of a lightning train, but I think if I use the words lightning train, you could pretty much figure it out. Mm-hmm. But it's a magical, lightning rail. It's a magical train meant to carry passengers, cargo, etc. throughout the world of Eberron. And we hear it first, and then we see it. It comes into frame. It's made out of wood and steel, treated with magic. There are flickers of lightning coming between it and the rail, and it floats like it's magnetically propelled over this rail, and it rips by. And we see, I think, from outside, we see the windows of this passenger car, and we see that the train is basically empty. It's an empty passenger train. And this is it, right? This is the 2 a.m. train out of Sharn. It's the last chance to escape a city that's turned its back on you. It's your only way out. And now it's been cut off. So we cut to the interior of a car. We see the group of you. And essentially, the train car is like a hallway, right? There are cabins on either side. There's an open area. You maybe thought that you were the only passengers on this train, but it clearly has been proven you were wrong. On either side of the car, the doors have opened, and coming in, holding, I think probably like crossbows and clubs, we see members of the Sharn City Police Department. You recognize them, Rook, by their little hats and their armored outfits. We see them close in on you, and they have you surrounded. And it looks to you like they are not here to ask you nicely to return with them. So I'm gonna pop you over to this train car map that I've put together here. And we are going to see how our characters deal with these police officers who are here to get you. So there is a captain, and I think actually I'm going to move you, Bruno, over here. So there's a captain in charge, and I think he does his thing. And you've seen this look. I think all 4 of you have seen this look on the face of police officers before, where the words he's saying, right? He says to you over the hum of the rail, he says to you, everybody just put down your weapons. Nobody needs to get hurt tonight. You're going to come back with us. But his eyes and the little grin on his face say, please put up a fight. It's all I want. Like, please give me an excuse. You know that if you go with these cops, that Delilah, for example, you'll never see daylight again. You've got a pretty bad record, and if you're found to have been a recidivist, it's back to the hole for you for the rest of your life. And the rest of you all have you have a reason to avoid being arrested by the cops. You've all done bad things. So why don't we get a description of the characters, right? I've described the situation, but I'll give you a chance to kind of give me an idea of what your character looks like to you, right? I picked some tokens that I think would be good stand-ins, but give me a description of what your character looks like and what we would learn if this is our first shot of them. What's the look on their face? Do they look nervous? Are they like readying a weapon? Give us some idea of what the character is thinking by way of this description. So Delilah, tell us, you're the one that has the most to lose here. What do we see as the camera pans over to Delilah?
I should say I do have the most to lose. After all, I could lose my freedom, my riches, my networking, my clients, and all they have to lose are their lives. How sad. And so Delilah sort of tilts, this elderly humanoid sort of tilts their romance novel that they're reading and turns their chin down a little. They've got a fur stole around their shoulders and dress that probably fit them better when they were younger. A silk red number with sheer sleeves and a low neckline. And they tilt their head to the side and their little black bob tilts with them. I tilt again and Vic, be a dear and stamp out my cigarette. I can't have it burning while we're dealing with this.
Of course.
I'm just gonna move Vic right over here. There's no way you're any more than 5 feet away from Delilah. What does Vic look like right now?
I think that they're in like a travel sort of mode. I think that they are probably looking like a human right now. Someone who would be seen traveling with Delilah is kind of like my look, because I don't want to make Delilah feel like they're with someone of a lower status.
I don't know why this just jumped into my head, but I envisioned Vic as looking like Raul Julia. Like Gomez Adams, like the little pencil mustache, like that's one of your forms.
Yes. just a sharp little suit and a sharp little number.
Yeah. Delilah definitely dresses Vic out of their family's closet.
Ah, nice.
If Delilah has like the 4th romance novel, like in the series, I have the 1st one and I'm trying to catch up. So that we can talk about it as friends. So yes, that's sort of my situation. I've stamped out the cigarette and I've done a wonderful job.
Okay, nice. All right. And Rook, what about you? I mean, some of these guys, right? Like this lieutenant, maybe you don't know his whole name. Maybe you can't remember maybe it was Doyle or something, but you know all of these guys. You've seen them before. They're from the same precinct you are.
Right. And probably don't think highly of me because they still have their jobs while
that's right. That's the problem of knowing all these cops is they all know you too.
Right. And so Rook, investigative unit 1138 is 6'10" and 300 pounds. And the way I envision this is that they are really like lanky, like they are thin and wiry, but also because they're investigative unit, in order to like get and disguise themselves, they can kind of compress their like joints to like collapse a little bit, not a lot. Like their size will stay medium, but they can compress slightly. And I was really inspired while I was thinking about this. Like he looks like Q from Street Fighter Third Strike. Like he's got the trench coat over and like the button down and a tie, but it's all really low quality. Like it's like there's like dirt all over his trench coat. There's clearly like sprawling that's coming. It's not high quality, this duster that he's got on him. And the same thing with like, he actually wears a bow tie. He doesn't wear a regular tie. He wears a bow tie. Yeah. Sorry, they wear a bow tie.
Yeah.
And their face is much more robotic than it is like a human mask. And you see Rook press themselves up against imagine this like side wall, putting their like back to Doyle maybe, and like kind of trying to get a read on them while also pulling out their short sword in their right hand while making them as small as possible.
Yeah, so you're making your. So you're trying to stay hidden, or are you drawing? Okay, yeah. So this isn't like I'm drawing my sword as a way to say like, yeah, I am going to. Right. Okay. So despite the fact that Delilah is a pretty high profile, like relatively influential target here, most of the police seem to be most concerned about what our last party member is going to do, and I think to the point where the lieutenant, when he's speaking, he's addressing the group, but he's looking at Bruno like, all right, Bruno, like, I know how you are. Like, let's all just stay calm. What do we see when we follow the lieutenant's eyes to Bruno?
So Bruno is also kind of tall, not as tall as Rook is, but like 6'2", pretty 250 pounds, like, but very like dense muscle. The way they're wearing like kind of like calf high, really formal pants that are just kind of a little bit shredded, and then also like just a duster, like no shirt underneath, very like hairy torso, and they have kind of bronze-ish skin, with gray light white hair that is like, they have long hair, and then the hair like on their body is also like it, but it's not like hair you would see on it. It resembles fur more than hair, like the on the torso and everything. And they're wearing this duster, no shirt, but the duster is also like at the arms and like shoulders and everything is also like a little bit shredded. But like right now you wouldn't really know exactly why, because it does flow off of them just a tiny bit at the moment. It's not like they're filling it out or anything yet. And when the lieutenant looks at Bruno for this, they put their hands up and start to put them kind of behind their head.
Yeah, because right now ain't none of these cops in punching range.
Yeah.
So they kind of look, and there's a moment you see between these two bandits, these cops over here, where they look at each other and they're like, no, you go arrest him. No, you arrest them. No, you do it. And it kind of like, it happens silently, but one of them, this one back here kind of covers you. And this officer approaches. He puts his weapon away, reaches for some handcuffs, and walks towards you. And he's doing that placating thing where he's got one hand out and he's like, "We're just gonna take you back to the station, Bruno. Get all this cleared up." Like, he's trying to pretend like this is gonna go great for you if you just cooperate. And he comes over with the handcuffs to cuff you.
I'd like to imagine that there's like a device at each of my palms, like down by the wrist, that Bruno can like press, and it shoots the knuckle dusters over their fingers.
Yeah. So this guy, I mean, nobody ever thinks that Bruno the Bear is truly unarmed, because most of these people have probably been at one of your fights. These are like bad neighborhood cops who hang out at the same things the mobsters do. So they've seen you fight. Nobody here has any compunctions, but getting punched in the face by your bare fists is scary enough. And then the knuckle dusters come out. And the cop probably realizes that this is not going to go great. Do you sock him in the face?
I sock him in the face.
All right, let's have you roll that, and I'll give you that one for free, and then we'll roll initiative. And then after the break, I guess we'll do our little fight with these officers. So yeah, go ahead and take a swing at him. Okay, all right. So the first swing, now this is great. You get 2 because you're a 2-weapon fighter. So the first swing, you lunge at him, and his own innate fear of you, his paranoia, like gives him that animal like he backs up, and your fist swings in the air. But a lot of people forget about the left hook. You want to try and tag him again? Let's see. Is this cop wearing armor? He is. So you hit him, not enough to hurt him, but you punch him in the chest. He staggers back, like trying to catch his breath. And the lieutenant, instead of getting upset that this turned into a fight or whatever, we just see the lieutenant grin and reach for his truncheon. But instead of coming towards you, Bruno, he's looking over here, like, who's the person I can beat on the easiest? And Vic, it looks like you're the target. So what we're gonna do is we'll get everybody to roll initiative, and we'll get all that stuff going, and we'll play this out. But first, we're gonna take a short break. So thank you everybody for coming. Stick around. We're gonna take a little break here, and we'll be right back with more Gateway to Perdition. Don't go anywhere.